Hey, what's going on, everybody? Game Geezer here. Today I got my new alternator in for my truck. I'm going to be installing this today. I'm going to show you how to do that. This came with it, showed that it passed, has all the voltage numbers and everything. This was rated for 170 amps, but you can see mine already puts out almost 180. That's pretty cool. So this is a brushless design one, that's why it's much bigger. This is the 36 SI. You can get these for $300 or $400 from AutoZone, but if you get them from Freightliner or whatever, they carry specific Delco brand, and those are going to cost you $600. But it's the same alternator. It's a 36 SI. So, anyways, you can see it does not come with the pulley. So I'm going to either have to get a pulley kit and take my old one, or I'm going to go ahead and stop by Freightliner and just buy a new one to make the whole thing new. So I'll decide on my way there, but I'm going to show you guys how to install this. And my old alternator is the smaller one, the traditional round style brushed one. And this is just an upgraded version. The only thing that matters when you're switching alternators is the bolt pattern. And so mine is a 4. I forget what they call the pad or something, pad pattern or whatever. But anyways, this is the pattern mine has, so this alternator will fit right in and be just fine. So anyways, I'm gonna go ahead, go grab a pulley or a kit to remove my original and get my tools and go install this on my truck and upgrade my alternator and swap it out because it's dead. And you guys can check that out and see what you think. All right, here's my old alternator. This is the one I'm gonna be changing out. You can see it's a lot smaller, but most of these trucks, they're pretty universal with the alternator you can put in. It's really your choice. You see all these bolts back here? And so I can put different various types of alternators in. Here's my pulley. The tensioner's here, so that's how we're gonna get the belt off. It's the automatic tensioner. Yeah, so that's what we're gonna change today. I'm gonna start by undoing these. Before I undo these though, I'm gonna unplug the positives off the batteries before I start messing with these. Now mine only has positive and negative. You might have up to 5 wires back here. I'll tell you what those are later. Not too important right now. But anyways, I'm gonna get the battery on back here. I just undid the positives, push them out of the way where they can't possibly come back and touch this in any way. And I just put the nuts back on them so they don't get lost. So only the positives there, should be fine. One of my batteries went bad, I had to take it out. So we're done. I'm gonna take these wires out so I don't gotta worry about getting shocked or anything, or sparking when a tool touches that and this or whatever. If for some reason your batteries are in a weird place and it's really a unnecessary pain and you don't want to undo your batteries, you can leave your batteries hooked, but it's going to be very dangerous. You're going to have to be extremely cautious to not touch one of the lines. And the only thing I could say, if I wanted to do this without undoing my batteries, is I would take the positive off very carefully, not to touch anything but just this specifically, and then I would electric tape this whole thing, the whole line, and then zip tie it somewhere out of the way, just as a temporary, just, you know, as a for some of y'all, maybe you're in that spot or something, I don't know, that's just an idea for me, but it's not recommended. So anyways, I'm gonna take these off and then the belt, and we'll go through that. See, no spark or nothing. The battery's good to go. I could just really put these out of the way somewhere up there. And now we gotta take the belt off. Taking the belt off is extremely easy on these. Just get yourself one of these breaker bars here. Really whatever you got that's got one of these, I think this one is a half. On here, and they'll pop into that square. I'll get that in a second, and then you can push that out of the way and release tension. And you see whenever I push on this, tension comes off the belt. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna pause the video. I'm gonna push this all the way that way more, and use my left hand to take this belt off. Just pull it off. Okay, did just what I said there, push that, use my left hand, got this out. Now my bar's long enough, it's reaching this support here. So that's good, it's gonna hold this tensioner for me right there, not let it go too far. off course, so when I put my new alternator in, it's gonna be pretty easy. Yeah, so I'm just gonna kind of slide that up just a tiny bit. Now, I can do one of two things. I can just unbolt the alternator down, take it out, or I can leave it, which if you're gonna use the old pulley and you're gonna take the old pulley out, you should leave it in like this. It'll be a lot easier. And just remove it from here. Okay, if you wanted to save your old pulley, you're gonna have to use one of these crescents. You can use either a wrench or an adapter like this. And you're gonna stick one in the front and then use a big wrench to turn the other way. And that's pretty much how you would do it right there. But I'm just gonna go get a new pulley. This one's being a pain to get off, and I really just don't want to waste a lot of time on it trying to save it. So I'm gonna go buy a new one. But this is basically the concept. You take that bolt out, get the nut off, and then you put a pulley remover on there and pull it off there. So anyways, since I'm just gonna leave mine on, I'm going to start taking these bolts out. I might even have to take this tube out of the way just for now. Side over here, and I loosen that one just in case I needed to remove the whole thing. Let it drop down enough, it's out of the way, it's fine now. So I'm just gonna start taking these 4 bolts off and pull this old one out. Should just basically, yep, it's ready to come out. So I'm gonna need 2 hands for that. Now when we put our new one back in, even though our new one's bigger, our new one's a little longer, what's gonna happen is you're supposed to line up the top bolts with the front of the bracket, and it'll come out to be the same up here. You know what I'm saying? So on the new one, we're gonna line up our front bolts to the front bolt here, and everything should just kind of work out on its own after that. Now when we're putting in the new one, we also need to remember that these need to be done first, these 2. So we need to put one in kind of halfway, one in halfway, and then just kind of rotate them and tighten those down. But before we get them all the way down, then we'll add the back 2. The 2 in the front are the most important because they align the belt. So we work on those, we pay most attention to those, then the backs, and then get them all kind of even, and then start snugging them all down. You know what I mean? So anyways, I'm gonna take this out of here, and I'm gonna go get a new pulley, I guess. I don't know, this one's being a big pain to get off, and honestly, I don't care about it that much. So we'll see. Okay, so there's where the Allen key goes in, and the wrench goes on the outside here. And you can see I'm using this just stupid plumber's wrench here. It's massive. I'm using a socket there instead of a regular key. And I'm a 250-pound guy, all right? And I still hit the gym a couple times a week, and I still can't get this thing off here, all right? So I'm just gonna save some time. I'm gonna go buy another pulley. I just can't seem to get this one out, even if I have this in there real good. Using my foot and both my arms as a brace, it's just it's not budging. So I don't know what the deal is, but I'm just gonna go ahead and get a new pulley, get the new pulley installed, and start putting the alternator back on. 60 bucks. What's cool about these pulleys here is they slide on. They're not like you don't need any kind of tool or anything to press them on there like that. So they just slide on. It came with a little washer here. I went ahead and put it on just because it came with it, but it might not be necessary. I used the impact, tighten this down. You can also use one of those key tools here and kind of start tightening this, but some people say it's dangerous to do that for the shaft and whatever. So I just use the impact, let it tighten it down. I feel pretty good about it. I'm gonna go ahead and pop it in. Now, like I was saying about the wiring thing, I only have a positive and negative in mine, so it's gonna be pretty straightforward. But you got some other options here. You got your positive, your ground, and they got R and I, and this blank one here. I forget what this blank one is, but I'll show you in the pamphlet later if you have extra cables, if you need to wire them to R or I, and what this one is. I can't remember off the top of my head. But just to get my truck going, I only need these 2. And if I would like, there's an extra feature called TrueSense, where I run a wire from the batteries up to the alternator, and I forget which one of these I plug it in. I'll figure it out in a minute. but I plug it into one, and the alternator will determine how much voltage loss I'm getting through the wires to the batteries. So it will figure out exactly the amount of voltage that's going to them, and then it can adjust to give more or less voltage to charge them properly and quickly. So that's something that I'm gonna definitely run later, but just for now I wanna get my truck going. So I got it all set in there. The bracket is holding it. I don't have any of the bolts holding it in yet. You can see kind of how everything's gonna line up there. So you need to start with the front two, which I'm gonna start with and do that. I'm a little concerned if my belt is gonna sit flush or not. I hope that this doesn't give me any issue, but it's too late now, so I guess we're gonna learn together. So here we go. Did the front two bolts, then started working these. This bracket's a little old and rusty, so moving the bolts from this one to this one, they didn't really want to go in there, so I used an electric impact, and this one fit. I got 3 out of 4. This one's got a little gap, and it's kind of fighting me, so I'm kind of scared it might break if I push it anymore. So I'm just gonna go to the next step. I'm gonna push this back and make the belt come back onto here and start hooking to my wires and test this thing out. Right. So all I had to do is push this back that way, use my left hand, get my belt back on, make sure that this part was still on this idler pulley here, part of the tensioner pulley, and let go. And it looks good. It looks good. I'm not worried about the alignment anymore like I was. So yeah, now I'm just gonna grab my positive, run my positive here, my negative here, and these that I'm not using yet, I'm gonna tighten them down just so that they don't wiggle free. Got my ground and my positive tightened up here, my belt's on. I just need to get this air tube back on and hook my batteries, positives back up, and then give it a test. Back together, tightened up, batteries are back up. Time to go see if the truck charges. Belt, there's something I like to do. I call it the jerk, and it's where you're gonna like let it kind of start, but don't hold it, you know, so the belt gets the movement. So like that. Uh-oh. Couldn't figure out why my alternator was putting out over 14 volts, but my batteries still just are not charging. I thought maybe remote sense not being hooked up had something to do with it, so started digging around. And I guess around the same time my alternator died, this wire here corroded off. So I got to get a new tip for this and hook this back in. So yeah, I just held it on there by hand and it started charging, so I know everything's good. So I'm gonna have to disconnect my batteries again and put a new tip on this, put this back on, and then that should fix my problem. I cannot believe my luck that this happened to be like this the same time my alternator died. And see, originally I thought it might be wiring, because my voltage would kind of variate, but then it got worse and worse, and then my alternator just checked out as no voltage coming out. So maybe this wiring is what actually killed my old alternator. I don't know, but either way, I got my new one in. I'm gonna get a new tip on this, install this, and then I'll be fixed up again. So I'm gonna do that tomorrow. I'm kind of running low on time. Okay, you can see I just pulled this back and I stripped the tip on this. I went ahead and I bought this, and hopefully this will be a good enough size to go on that bolts onto that giant starter back there somewhere. So I'm hoping that it'll just work out. If not, I'm gonna have to figure something out, and that's gonna suck. But anyways, let's see what happens here. Now I'm hoping that where this red line is where this one needs to connect, because it goes into a reasonably sized one. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop this on there and see if my alternator gets back to charging my system, which I think it's going to. Hope so. So anyways, here we go. Let's see. Up for safety here, just so this doesn't touch anything. I'm gonna go ahead and loosen that bolt down there and pop this on, and hopefully this will fix my problems. I'll show you the bolt I'm talking about. It's kind of hard. You can just follow this positive wire here, and up in there is a smaller bolt. So I'm gonna try that one, because these other ones are just too big, and hopefully that'll fix my issue. So I got the tip on there. I got it on there. It's not touching anything. It's actually in a pretty good spot. I kind of adjusted things around while I was in there. Tightened some things up. And my voltage is looking good. I didn't have enough slack in the cable to quite reach comfortably, so I just kind of pulled some of the slack that I had in the lines going through. So I kind of tore some of this off and was like yanking a little bit, and I pulled about an inch from the front that was just slacked by the alternator, and I got it all the way down here, and now it fits perfectly, and I didn't have to use any aftermarket battery line or anything like that. But that would have been so much easier if I did that, but I really want to stick to the original as much as I can. So anyways, let's go check out the voltage now, and I'll explain how I ended up losing my alternator, and basically some things you can do to test and figure out if it's your batteries, your alternator, or a wire. And we'll go over that and kind of what happened to me, kind of weird scenario, if you want to stick around for that. Back in the truck here, I'm going to go ahead and start it up, show you the voltage, and then I'll go over how I figure out what kind of issues to look for when my truck's having battery problems. There it goes. Starts up so nice. Volts. That's freaking awesome, because my old alternator would at best be 13.8. Turn the air on max, turn the lights on. .1 volts. And what's particularly awesome about this alternator, besides the fact that it's a 30-pound alternator and it's OP, which just means beast mode alternator. It has this thing inside the regulator called TrueSense. So you can run a positive wire, like a speaker wire or any kind of like positive wire, from the alternator to the battery bank, and it will determine how many volts are actually making it from the alternator to the battery bank, and it will determine what the proper voltage is to properly charge your batteries and maintain them without overcharging them or undercharging them. And some point later in the week, I'm gonna hook that up. This is just, I'm on the road and I'm just trying to get my alternator going. I'm tired of using jumper cables, but anyways, I'm gonna hook that up. I think that's freaking awesome. It's gonna extend my battery life and my alternator life, which this alternator's probably honestly gonna outlive my truck, unfortunately. But anyways, so yeah, I'm gonna cut into the boring stuff and talk about how I figure out what's going on when I have voltage issues, and what happened to me in particularly, if you want to stick around for that. But otherwise, I'll catch you guys. Okay guys, here's the boring stuff if you want to find out kind of what happened to me. I started noticing voltage drop from 13.8 to 13.2, 13.1, which is not usual at all. That's weird for my truck. So first thing I did when I got back to the yard is I took my battery bank out. I took my batteries to AutoZone or O'Reilly's, I can't remember which one. I got my batteries tested under load, and out of my 4 batteries, one of them was bad. So I took the bad battery out, hooked them back up. Still the same story, nothing changed, but at least I took the bad cell out so it wasn't draining my system as hard. Then I got my alternator tester, and I hooked it up to my alternator, and I can show you guys how I did that now if you want. The alternator is real easy. Just stick this somewhere more metal. Come on now. Whatever. Just stick it there. So mine only has a positive, negative, but you just find your ground. You stick that on your ground, and you stick this on here while your truck is running, and it'll read a couple things. It'll read battery life, so you can see I got past 12 volts, and then what kind of power the alternator is putting out. Now if I go start my truck, that 14 volt plus will light up red. So that's how you would check your alternator there. Make sure that first of all, it's put out voltage. And then second, you want to go inside your truck, turn all your lights on and your AC, and come back out here and do it again. And if you notice that the alternator is dropping down, your alternator is bad. If it stays the same, alternator is good. So, $10, yeah, they're well worth the investment. So my alternator was reading good originally. So that meant that I had a loose wire somewhere in my system or ground. I checked my wires for a week while I was working, and my voltage would bounce around normal and back and bad, and I just could not find that wire. I went and tugged on all my wires and couldn't find it. Unfortunately, driving around with a busted wire like that killed my alternator. So then I was like, you know what, maybe the whole time it was my alternator. So I put that beast alternator in there, the 36 SI. Boom, super voltage, definitely not my alternator. Started tugging around cables again, and that's when I found that positive coming off the alternator was completely broke. It wasn't completely broke when I first was searching for the wire, so I guess that's my original culprit, was just the wire. I probably could have saved my alternator if I had been able to spot that it was loose and breaking apart, but that's just how it goes. So that's just part of my story. My initial problem was a dead battery and a busted wire, but my busted wire caused my alternator to short out from, I guess it was just bouncing around in there, arcing on and off, and killed my regulator and my alternator or something like that. And yeah, so anyways, that's my alternator install. And then along the way I found a dead battery, and then I also found that busted wire, and I put a new tip on that, and everything's good to go now. So I'm super excited about that. Let's give it one more crank. Check out that sweet 14 volts again. Get some AC on in here. I don't have to worry about being stuck now, jumping off my reefer unit or anything like that. If any of y'all are curious how to jump your truck off of your reefer unit, I can show you how to do that. I can even show you how to convert a pair of jumper cables into a permanent solution where you can wire it up to the reefer so you can get by for a week and not have to climb in and out of the truck all the time to wire it back up. If that's something y'all are interested in. Oh man, that's so beautiful though. 14.1 volts. Oh yeah. That's nice. Oh yeah. So anyways guys, that's my install video of the 36 SI alternator into a Freightliner Detroit 14 liter S60. I hope you guys found this helpful. Maybe you guys are struggling trying to figure out what's going on with your voltage in your truck, and this kind of led you to a couple of things to look at. Until next time, I'll see you later.